Hello, Apple Valley Fab Lab students. It's Mr. Lee, and today what we're going to do is learn how to make a laser cut box on our laser engraver. So I have that in the week 12 lesson plan. So if you go to our course materials and open up that link, you'll see I put in a couple other links. One is to this box designer, and we're going to use that to prepare a PDF file that we can edit in Illustrator. So I'm going to click on that link. It's going to open up in a new tab. And what it has are a set of units, the dimensions for the box, the material thickness, the file type, and then we're going to do some advanced options too. So you want to make sure that the units are in inches. We're going to make our box 3 inches by 4 inches by 2 inches tall. And if you look at the question mark to the right, it gives you some information. So that's width, depth, and height of our box. So it's going to be 3 by 4 by 2. The thickness of our material is 1/8 inch plywood. So, but in decimal, that's 0.125. So you got to change that. And then our file type, we're going to do a PDF because Adobe Illustrator can directly open them up. What we also want to do is go into the advanced options, and we want to, you can change this cut length if you'd like. I'm going to leave it set the way it is. The cut width I'm going to leave. We're not going to include a cover for these boxes, so you want to say no, don't include cover. And then you just go into design it, and that will download to your downloads folder. So what I'm going to do is open that up, and in the downloads folder it gives it some kind of a goofy name, so I'm going to rename it. So I'm going to call it box 3 by 4 by 2. And I'm going to save that to my desktop. So I'm going to move it over to my desktop so it's a little easier to do things. The next thing I'm going to do is go to Adobe Illustrator and open that up. And what I'm going to do now is directly open that file, and that's on my desktop. So I'm going to go to my desktop and open that file. And you notice when it opens up, it has some information that's hard to see. So I'm going to temporarily make it easier to see. And I'm also going to do a couple other things so that we can edit it. Now, if you go into File and then Document Setup, we need to make sure that this document setup is the right size for cutting out. So if you go to Edit Artboards, you'll see up at the top that it has the width and height of our artboard. We're going to make that 15.5 by 15.5. That's how big the material is. And I want you to have that as your artboard so that when we start manipulating things, it'll be a little bit easier to see. I'm also going to turn on the ruler and then the grid. So Control R and Control and quote turns those on. Now, you'll notice too that you can barely see the pieces. So I'm going to temporarily make them bigger so that we can see them. Make sure that you have Window, Workspace, and Essentials Classic turned on, because that way you can see the stroke up in the menu. This is the stroke box. So what I'm going to do right now is select all, and I'm going to make the stroke temporarily, we're going to make it like 2, just so we can see stuff. And you notice that the stroke has a question mark there. I'm going to change it to full red, which is FF and then 4 zeros. Click OK. Before we do that, though, you do need to check the document color mode and we're in RGB, so that's good. PDF files usually are RGB. So now we can kind of see our box pieces, and I'm going to kind of move them into position so that they cut more efficiently. So you notice we have some pieces that are different lengths and different sizes. And because I made our cut artboard the same dimensions as the wood, we're going to be able to place this a little bit more efficiently and cut it. This part down here I'm not going to keep, so I'm going to delete that, the delete key. And you notice that these have a top, that's the top edge of the box. It's flat because we're not putting anything on the top, which is kind of important. So when I move these, I'm going to actually rotate this around 270 degrees so that I can put in an image. So you notice here I'm going to go 270 on the transform window. When I hit enter, it should move it around. I guess I went a little too far. So let's go to 90 and 180. There we go. So I want to have that top so that I can place the images and they're going to look right when they engrave. So there I have two end pieces, two side pieces, and then this one I'm going to flip around too so that I can engrave on it if I want. So 180 looked like that was the way to flip it around. So that looks pretty good. This bigger piece, that's going to be the bottom of our box. So what I can do now is I can bring in some images, but before I do that, I'm going to make this outline the way it should be. And so if you go Control A to select all, the stroke needs to be 0.001 to cut. So I change that. When I hit enter now, it'll make all those cut lines really, really small. When they're not highlighted, it's really hard to see them. So I unhighlighted it and you can see that. Now what I've done is I've created a couple images that I want to put on these. So I'm going to place those images. One of them is my dog Lucy. So I'm going to place that. And it's probably going to be really big. Yep. So I'm going to image trace it and then resize it. So I hit image trace, expand. I'm going to get rid of all the white. So I'm going to control click or right click to isolate the group. And I'm going to get rid of the white. So now if I zoom out with the control and the minus key, I can see how big it is. It's huge. We're still in isolation mode right now. And you can see that under layers that we're in isolation mode. So I'm going to select all. And then in here you can see the dimensions for Lucy. It's 19 by 15. So I'm going to make her width about 2. Now I can actually place it into one of the sides. And I had those up in the corner. So I'm going to just kind of place it up there for right now temporarily. Then I'll double click. Then I'm going to click on, so that's the end piece. I want her to be on the side. So I'm going to move it over into this space here. And if I click on that, I can kind of move it around a little bit. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to have her raised up just a little bit. I do have one other image that I'm going to put in for the other one. And on the assignment, you want to do at least 2. You can do all 3 sides if you want. It's entirely up to you. So I'm going to place this one. I'm going to do the image trace again and then expand. And I'm going to right click to isolate the group. And I'm going to get rid of that white box. I'm also going to shrink that down about to about 2 inches in width and height. And now I'm going to place this one on the other box, so I got to find out where that is. So if I just double click and then select, there's the other side that I want to use. So I'm going to move that into the box. So I'm going to go over to layers to move it. Now kind of position it there. Now if I click on the, so I got to move it up a little bit. It looks like it's a little bit tall. So I'm going to shrink this down. I'm going to hold the shift key so the X and Y shrink together. And then I can kind of place it where I want it. That looks pretty good. Last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put some text in. So I'm going to use the text tool. And I'm going to put Lucy on one side. But I'm going to make it much bigger. And I kind of like College Block. I'm going to hold the shift key so that it changes dynamically. And that's Myriad Pro. But if I change it to College Block, I think I do have that. Yeah, I like that better. So that one's going to go with that end piece. And then I'll just kind of make sure it's centered. And then it's ready to go. So if I select everything, Control A, that looks pretty good. I could put something down on this box, but I'm going to leave that blank. And now this is actually ready to cut because the cut lines are small. They're at 0.001, and then I kind of ordered things so that it's going to cut more efficiently on the wood. Last thing to do is you go File, Save As to your computer. I'm going to save it to my desktop, and I'm going to put my last name, first initial, class period, and then laser cut box. And that's it. Then we'll bring it over to the laser and then engrave it. And then you have to glue it together. And I'll show that process in class. And that's it for today. So you can save it as a PDF. You could also save it as an Illustrator file. Either one will work. That's it for today. Have a nice day.